Good morning. How are you doing?
Morning, Kieran. How are you?
Not too bad. A bit of jet lag.
Beautiful for you, but a beautiful day here in Ireland this morning. Clear
It's
blue
beautiful.
skies.
It's a beautiful afternoon here too. With blue skies, 34 degrees, so it's absolutely gorgeous. Hey, do you want to introduce yourself there and let our listeners who don't know exactly who you are and what your background was?
Okay, I'm former prison officer from the time of the Troubles, the Dirty War in Portlaoise Prison. My name is Sean O'Brien.
Sean,
So
can
do you
you
want-
can you give us a rundown of why we're on here today, what exactly it's about, and we'll go from there.
You put up a podcast yesterday, and it was on the Irish Times and what they were doing to you. I think, but I found that disingenuous in the fact that something similar happened to me some time ago, and I didn't like it. So I rang you to explain the story to you, and you asked me to come on, and I'm here.
Fantastic. Can you repeat that story?
I can, yeah. I happened to be in a position where I was in the Dáil for almost a year, thing, and I would have spoke to the three principals in Ireland. I would have spoke to the president, Michael D. Higgins, on this issue and others. I would have spoke to the Minister for Justice, Jim McCallaghan, on this issue and others. And there was Micheál Martin. I spoke to him at Lint on this issue, to which he organised a meeting for me to attend an LH 2000 in the Dáil, and he didn't turn up for it. And so, being in the Dáil, I got talking to Martin Ferris. Now, Martin Ferris was the OC, for people that don't know. He was captain of the Brita and was bringing in huge arms into Ireland, and he subsequently got a huge sentence for it. And he was in charge of Portlaoise Prison. Very genuine, very fair guy. He ran the prison excellent. No, there was absolutely no difficulties whatsoever between the staff and Martin Ferris when he was there. Pure and utter gentleman. I get mental blocks from the PTSD from the shooting incident. So you just have to give me. You may tell me where I was there, Kieran.
You were saying about that Martin Ferris was the head of he was the OC for the political prisoners in Portlaoise Prison. You were
Yes.
saying that he was a great guy, and that was it.
Yeah, so I met him. He was a TD in the Dáil. I met him, and he got talking to me, and he assumed I got a medal for for capturing Paddy McPhee the day of the shooting incident, and he assumed that I got a big payout. To which he was shocked when I told him I didn't. So when I explained the whole story to him, he said, "Come up to my office," to which I did on a few occasions. And he was trying to do so. He's writing to the Minister for Justice, telling them I captured him, I was shot at, and he witnessed it and that, but they were ignoring him. And he said, "You have to go public."
That was the attempted prison break in '88, right?
It was an extradition warrant of Paddy McPhee, who was a free man. It was totally botched. The management absolutely botched it and tried to cover it up. They tried to have another prison officer sack Paddy Dunn for it, where they tried to say it and wanted me to coerce me into writing falsifying a document whereby Paddy Dunn had done this, and Paddy Dunn refused to go down, and Paddy Dunn stopped the search, to which there's 25 actual reports on the day by prison officers. 4 of them is written by the same prison officer, Martin Riley, who became governor of Castlereagh Prison. He has 4 different reports of the same event, and 2 of them are written by the governor, and he signed by it. And there's some prison officers say they don't agree with what Ned Harkins is doing. He's trying to cover up what is going on. The botched escape that day to blame Paddy Dunn, who was subsequently suspended. And the Prison Officers Association went with the government, went with the Department of Justice side, and they sort of handled us for the management. Not to mention, in my case, Noel Toohey from the Prison Officers Association told me not to mention the shooting, not to mention capturing the prisoner, and not to mention that about being falsifying documents. on the pretense that Paddy Dunn would be sacked if I continued it. And Paddy Dunn was suspended at this stage. Actually, my report on it is the smallest one of them all. It's only about that size, while the rest are big sheets of paper on it. Is there anything else you want to know about that, Kieran?
Yeah, what was about the involvement of British agents in the whole incident? Who was around the prison area? What involvement or were the involvement of MI5 agents at the same time?
Yeah, we need to go back to Martin first, but the MI5, I was contacted by an MI5 agent, and your listeners will know this guy because he was in the paper about 2 years ago in the front of the papers, where he exposed and has the name, and he told me the name of the person in the Irish government, high-ranking official in the Irish government, that's an MI5 agent, and he's planted there, and he's been there for years and years and years. And there's others.
I believe speaking to a couple of people in the intel community, they believe that there's 15 assets for MI5 assets within the Irish government, which kind of just blew my head apart when I was hearing that. Actually, 15 they're saying that's in there. British assets within the Irish government.
Kieran, you're so far away from the mark. Your sparrow is a lighthouse in fisherman's terms there. There's a lot more. And various, they span all the agencies, all the government departments. And plus they're transcribed into Northern Ireland as well. They're there as well.
Right. I was speaking there, and again, like it was a friend in the intel community in the States, and that's the number he was saying. I'm not sure because again, it was really late. It was really late last night. I was getting on a flight, and I was shocked. I was shocked that you have an Irish government right now. You have a bunch of Irish politicians elected by the Irish people, and they're actually working for the British intelligence community. I mean, it really just blew my mind apart.
Yeah, it's working for British intelligence, but it's more than that. They're being coerced. Some of them are being coerced because they have let me say, they have videos that they wouldn't want anyone to see, and they say, you do this or else this will come out on them. Anyway, we going back to the MI5 agent. He contacted me after I made a few other podcasts and a few other things, and he told me that day at the gate on the 18th of May 1988, they knew it was arranged escape. They knew the escape was going to go ahead. They knew Charlie Haughey didn't want to extradite one of his own to Maggie Thatcher. Now, in 2011, I met with Noel Tracy. Noel Tracy, TD, he had the extinguished thing of being the only Minister for Justice in charge of prisons. And along with PJ McAfee, past president and General Secretary of the Prison Officers Association, very, very good Secretary General. He got his loads of conditions. Parity with the nurses, 1956 regulations are very on, not like the POA of today. He said to us that was an arranged escape. I wasn't supposed to catch him that day, that Charlie was never going to extradite one of his own. It's actually the cover of my book, his quote is on it. And he wrote to the Minister for Justice, Francis Fitzgerald, and told her that he had read my file. It was disgraceful what was in it, what he heard in it, and he wanted an immediate review of the whole lot and for me to be put back on duty. But Francis Fitzgerald ignored that request. Going back to the MI5 agent, when he contacted me, he told me that they were posing as cameramen. Now, when he says MI5 agent, you're looking at a team of 12. And they were going to take Paddy McPhail on when he escaped. They reported to Colonel Lamb, which is the attaché in Dublin, working in the British Embassy, who reported to Colonel Williams. Colonel Williams was one of the people killed in the Chinook helicopter crash. And the report is, the heading on the report is attempted murder of a prison officer, where they said that day the witness that I was being shot at, that they were trying to kill me to prevent the escape. And that's their report, and that the bullets went across the Dublin Road and more or less had the trajectory of going in the front door of the mental hospital, and everybody was in danger that day. And that what they witnessed was ricochets. And they said that more people are killed by ricochets and live fire than are killed by direct fire. That's very strange in a war type situation. And he actually did more. He wrote a protective disclosure. He wrote it to the Minister for Justice, and she ignored it. But he also gave me other information that when I met the Minister for Justice, which I met, and I told her on the murder of Tom Oliver and Colleen McMurray, I gave her the name of the chap that killed him, how he killed him, and what he done to them, how he put a gun to their head and shot them in a murder house paid for by the British government, which there's loads of them in Southern Ireland still operating, and that he was taken from the south. And she said to me, I'm very concerned of what you're telling me. I'll have to look into this. I said, well, don't look into anything till I give you the proven document, because I was going to put the MI5 agent in front of her whose only interest, he wants these people brought home, these people have a proper burial, proper for the families. That's his whole intent. She said to me, I can't meet with you. And I said, have the civil servants that much control over you? You can't meet. You can't commit. No, she said, I can't commit to a meeting. I just walked away from her. To which there was another politician in the room, and he said to me, what was going on with you and the minister there?
What was the name of that politician?
I don't want to say it now because he said I'm very friendly with him, and I'm very friendly with the family. Right. He said, what's going on with you and the minister there? And he said, I made something up. And he said to me, geez, she wanted to throw hold on to you. She didn't want you going away from her, did he? So he knows it. I just walked away from her, right? That was her interest in it. When I was giving her information, and that MI5 agent could solve that murder.
I'm actually looking forward to doing an interview with the MI5 agents over the next 3 or 4 weeks.
They don't, Kieran, they don't want to solve this because the Lord Mountbatten's children that were brought to him, the guards have their names and know who brought them and know a thing. I know who brought them. I know the agents that brought them. I know the drivers that brought them. I've been told their names from the MI5 agent. But the guards won't release that information. They're holding on to it. They're complicit in the complete cover-up. And remember, while I have PTSD, the more serious injury is a moral injury. Nobody knows anything about it. It's a bigger monster. It hurts you in places you can't even see. And that's the continuation of your own government, your own department, not dealing with your circumstance situation. They've never sat down with me and asked me what happened that day. Now, I was brought to the Department of Justice on the 14th of June, 1988, to discuss the whole affair around the shooting, which I told them around the shooting. That's a whole new under podcast for you, what happened that day, or what I told them that day. And they told me initially I was getting a medal. They congratulated me, and they said it's the first PIRA prisoners ever been captured while escaping. There's never another one. I didn't know that. And we'll be getting some type of promotion of it as well. But when I told them what was going on in Portlaoise prison, what I witnessed, the systemic beatings of prisoners, who was beating them, how they were beating them. Now, I can go into that if you want, how they're using strip searches for it. I've no problem going into that if you want, but can we go back to how Martin Ferris and for your issue, I want to sort your thing out with Irish Times first.
Yeah, please do.
I want to keep people's attention, keep it short, because this is a film. So I leave Martin Ferris's office now. He has said to me, you need to go public. And I was saying, no, not doing that, Martin. Officials, I was terrified of the Official Secrets Act because they had already threatened me. I got a phone call already from the Department of Justice telling me to shut up or to jail me if I kept talking about what went on during the Troubles, the dirty war. In actual fact, under the Good Friday Agreement in 2000, in 2000, part of it, there was every prison officer from the Good Friday Agreement was to be brought into Portlaoise to a hotel where you were given dinner and you spoke on it. Rafferty was the professor in charge of it, and you were given thing. I was given rang up, told I was to attend it. When I was attend to it, then I got a call. I believe it was from the Department of Justice. When they told them what I was putting in it, what I was going to say, because they said they wanted to give me a time slot. I never attended that. They never brought me to it. And actually, Mary Rafferty, the author of the report, didn't even turn up for its opening. And the Prison Officers Association threatened legal action, along with the Department of Justice, if they didn't omit a lot of the stuff from it, which they did. It's not a true report. But anyway, I'm with Martin Ferris, left Martin's office, and I'm walking across the plinth, and I could see with the corner of my eye, Irish Time reporter making her way, which converged with me just before the gate. And she said an odd question to me. She said, "How are you?" And she was on Finch and Brown that night. The night before, I looked at her and I just said, "Gee, you're brilliant on it," which she was. And she said to me then, this is the question that triggered me straight away, because any harm in actually what you're doing up here. So I knew straight away. Martin wanted me to go and meet on the media. Here's a media person in front of me. She said to me, and I said, "Well, I can't talk to you about it because it's Official Secrets Act." She said, "How about we do it off the record? No one knows anything about it. And you have my word on that." I said, "Fair enough." I said, "I'll go over to Buswell's. We'll go over to Buswell's and I'll get you a cup of coffee." She said, "No, Rupert Murdoch has a coffee and a bun," she said. So he went over there, told her the story, and I played her an audio tape that confirmed stuff that I said was true. And that was about the illegal recordings. That was where prison officers were illegally recording the legal visits of the IRA prisoners before they went to court in Green Street, which was a kangaroo court anyway, and still in operation, strangely enough. And these transcripts were given over to the heavy gang, and heavy gang didn't use them on the prisoners, which is totally illegal. I reported that to the judges, reported Taoiseachs, reported to the High Court, reported to all the inquiries that ever came up on the phone tapping in Garda stations, and it was all ignored. The Attorney General said it wasn't her remit to investigate any of those things, but she never told me where was it going. Now, I was contacted, these illegal recall, I was contacted by Martin Ferris out of the blue one time, and he told me, he just asked me about the legal recordings. I'm just going off this now, but he said to me about doing it. And then he said there was other officers doing it, and he had the names of them. There was 5 prison officers doing it. But Kieran, this is extraordinary. While there was 5 prison officers doing it, I did not know those other people, that they were doing it until only a few years ago, when another prison officer approached me and gave me the information of the others that were doing the same thing. And in fact, it was the desk for the visitors, for the legal visitors going on. So just a big desk, but it was a box type desk, and there was a sliding door in it. And they noticed that sometimes the legal people would whisper to their clients directly. So they had a prison officer inside the sliding door, inside the desk, with a flash lamp, taking the notes of what he could hear. So anyway, we go over to Buswell's. I play her the tape, confirms that, and she just sits back in the desk and she put her hand up like that, Kieran, to her head like that, and she says, "Oh my God, you have the ability to bring down the government. I have to print this." And I said, "No, you can't. You can't say anything at all about this." And she said, "If I go to Martin Ferris and talk to Martin Ferris, and Martin Ferris gives me the okay, will you?" And I said, "Yeah, of course. No, Martin Ferris never do it." But behold, Jesus, Martin did. She rang me then. She said, "Martin Ferris have to confirm everything you said about Portlaoise during the Troubles, and a lot more." Now, one of the things it was an arranged escape. They had a motorbike the far side of the wall, and that was going to take the Paddy McPhee on. So it was arranged escape. And she did a little story, but she never did that one. And then Martin contacted me out of the blue and asked me about, did I give her the proof of it, and why wasn't she printing it and stuff like that. And he was a bit upset and annoyed over it. Obviously, they were making something behind the scenes of it. I believe Martin had an agenda there to do that, and he would have been right to do that. And, I mean, this is huge exploit, going to cause the state millions and millions in false detentions under this, and he sort of got annoyed with me, thinking I didn't give her the proof, because he wanted the proof. But I couldn't give the proof to him because we like giving the IRA, and that wouldn't look good on for me doing it. But I now regret I should have done it, because the Irish government, they don't care about us. We're totally minions to that. We're minions to them. Serfs. That's all we are to them. So I ring Justine up. I said, Justine, what's going on? I said, Martin's on to me. He's very annoyed. Yeah, you're not going to do the story thing. He said, I'm controlled here. I can't do that story. They won't let me do it. And then we go on. There's a prison officer in my house. I don't want to say his name. I can say his name if you want, but he's very nervous. He thinks they're going to take his pension off him, which Justine McCarthy said they can't take your pension off him. He was actually in my house when this was going on, and he came to tell me that he was asked to falsify a report as well on an escape, and he came with me with that information, told me who it was. No, it was another individual did it to him, not the same person that was asking me to falsify the report. And so he's telling me the story about how it happened to him, how he was terrified, and he ordered them to do it and threatened them and all that sort of thing. So he's here, and Justine McCarthy happened to ring me. And I said to her, I told her about Colin's story, and I said, by the way, Colin is here. And she said, will Colin have a word with me? And I said, Colin, will you have a word with him? Word with her? She said, yeah, well. So he told her the same story, but he also told her more because I had told Justine about Tommy McMahon and Ned Harkins, the prison governor, handing him a loaded handgun after the escape, which is crazy stuff. Like, and loads of prison officers and guards around. And here's a prisoner being handed. Here's a loaded gun, Tommy. Here, shoot who you like. Which was taken, and that loaded handgun was taken off of Peter Rogers, who had shot some guards, and that Peter Rogers had pointed that gun beforehand at my brother and threatened to shoot him. He said, if you move, I'll fucking shoot you, you bastard. I had said to him. But anyway, that's another story for another day. So Colin confirmed to her that Ned Harkins had handed the gun over, loaded handgun, everyone to witness and told their story. So at the time when Justine McCarthy was being sacked from the Irish Times, removed from the Irish Times, I don't know. And I talked to Martin Ferris about it, and Martin said, you better get her notes, get her to make notes on it and have notes. So I rang Justine McCarthy, said, Justine, any chance you give me a copy of your notes from the Irish Times? So because I need to rely on them as something. These notes, and she said to me, geez, Sean, I've no access to my office anymore. Very strange. And then I said, that's okay. Just write out what you remember from it, and that'll do. And she fucking said a really extraordinary thing to me. Absolutely bamboozled me. Said, I can't remember any of that. And that's an Irish Times reporter that's supposed to be on, like, sort of bringing out the truth, knowing the truth. I'm sure there's the principles, no etiquette, no nothing. That was extra, and she knew that I was suffering my story, and she knew how I was suffering and things, and she still did. I was still prepared to do that to me. To this day, she's not giving me the notes or anything like that. Now, any journalist, there's lots of journalists know my story and that. And one journalist said to me, I can't print your story. We're told not to print your story. He said, I lose my job if I print your story.
Isn't it very clear at this stage, and looking at all of this, and my own background, and when you look at the Irish media, I mean, we really don't have a media. For the most part, there is a propaganda arm for the Irish government. And I see that the Irish Times, which I'm back and forth with the Irish Times quite a bit at the moment, some of the things even I can prove that they did, breaking court orders, everything else, they seem to be, onto a law of their own. I mean, there seems to be no punishment for whatever they seem to do. They can break laws, break court orders, and they seem to be exempt from prosecution, which is deeply troubling in what we're meant to have as a democracy, when in fact, there it really doesn't exist. Most of the Irish people they believe that, that the democracy actually exists. But at the end, like, what's there is a complete and utter dictatorship. Nothing short of it. Like when you have the likes of the media in Ireland that are not reporting crimes and they're setting up people. We saw again with Eve Doherty and other people that tried to speak out about other stuff. And Eve, what did he do with Eve? They threw her behind bars. Again, a woman that had served our country. And
Eve,
she was a guard, remember the Garda Síochána.
what they did to Eve was a little bit better or worse, because they got an implanted DPP in there that shouldn't have been in there, with a cocaine habit, with a drug habit, with a theft habit. She's been thrown out of America, thrown out of England with the same thing, and she's put in there because she's related to former Taoiseach, and she gets in there and she's controlling the whole lot. Even to this day, she's even taken names off of warrants in serious things like murder and things. But going back to the media, you may not know this, Kieran, but in the Dáil, the media is controlled. They have one person in charge of the media, so a senior media guy. He controls who has access to the TDs, who has access to the Dáil to get into the chamber. Like, they're the only ones that's allowed into the chamber. You're behind plate glass and things. You can't hear. They're actually sitting in there. They control that. And they also control who goes on the junkets, who goes on the G2, the airplane, who goes to the ferries, the fence and things like that. So their whole livelihood depends on that one guy. So if they print a negative story on Micheál Martin, if there's any Micheál Martin, gone, they're finished. And they're implanted. Some didn't bring out I know of a very serious journalist in the Independent that does stories and sort of tips around the peripheral, like you think it's a good thing, but all she's doing is collecting stuff. So she goes to you, get your story, but she's actually collect all the information you have and now hands it over to the Department of Justice, so they have it. I was one time talking to TD from Kilkenny, McGuinness, and he was talking to me, and when he heard my story, he said to me, it was in the Dáil again because I was up there a lot, he said to me, I can't believe what you're telling me. He said, I was told you were a fucking idiot telling, am I allowed to say that here?
You are, yeah.
Too late now. But they're his words. He said, you were a fucking idiot going around telling the fucking stupid stories. And no one was to listen to you. I said, who told you that? He said, oh, the civil servants. And he pointed into the Dáil. So they make up a narrative. In my case, in 2014, a guy called Donald, he made up a report on the behest of the Department of Justice, a pure false report, where he said in it that Martin Riley caught the prisoner, the guy that wrote the 4 reports on the thing, and that I got caught in the wire. I never caught the prisoner. And that he viewed the day that he was only doing his job, and being shot wasn't up. He didn't pass any remarks on it. So whatever they were doing in 2014, I don't know. But that particular civil servant that did that report had done several other reports before, false reports. And I even did one on another prison officer, but he was caught out in court with that one. And the prison officer got returned to work and got a lot of money of it. And I had to sign the document saying, don't talk to anyone about it. But she did talk to me about it.
I want to put this in 2 parts, right? I mean, there's just so much. I know we can go on for the next hour with this, and I know part 2 of this is actually even more shocking. Again, about the involvement of MI5 with the Army Council, and again, like, I mean, it's truly shocking. But it's
just one thing for your listeners. I'm one of the very few. Well, I was not the first whistleblower. During the arms trial, Captain Kelly would have been the very first whistleblower, I reckon. But the way he was described, he died on his bed. His family had to tell him, "Oh, you're on the way with your."
No relation to myself, by the way, Captain Kelly.
Okay. But here's the thing: I sat directly in front of most of the cabinet, almost all of the government, over a cup of coffee in LH 2000, told them my story. In actual one case, one man started crying when he heard the story. And he was put in charge of the Good Friday Agreement committee. And I wrote to him with the thing in it. Guess what he wrote back to me? The Good Friday, my thing that happened during the Trouble, and Martin Ferris has said, that he was a negotiator of the Good Friday Agreement, that there is provisions in there for anyone that's affected by the Good Friday Agreement or by the Troubles, which I was. This particular thing he wrote back and told me I was outside the remit of the Good Friday Agreement. So if you're shoot somebody or kill somebody during the Troubles, you get all the help you want. But if they try to kill you, you're the victim, you get nothing. And after all, we were doing our job, but how much training did the prison officers receive for dealing with political prisoners during the Trouble? What type of training did they receive, Captain? Question for you.
I'd say very, very little.
No.
Again, none.
None. We were just thrown in there.
Yeah. Well, we touched on that on the second interview, something about the beatings, the tortures, and also of course, like we lead up to again MI5 and the involvement of MI5. It is believed that on the signing of the Good Friday Agreement, eight of the 10
that's right.
members of the Army Council were actually agents of MI5. 8 out of 10. I mean, that completely blew my mind that there was that. We all knew that there was one or two, or again, it was known, I guess, as Republicans that there was a few that were dark cloud over. But 8 out of 10 of them were actually assets of MI5.
Yeah.